Just gonna wait for some folks in here.
I'm not seeing it up on YouTube.
Yeah, it's up. I just clicked on it. Or no. Wait.
Just join us. We're just waiting for the folks to get in here.
There we go.
There it is.
Is it popping up for everybody?
Yeah, good to go now. Yeah, good to go now.
Yeah, I'm seeing the chat pop up.
Hey, there they are.
Reminder, go ahead and post test in there for you guest stars on tonight. That's the brevity code. Yeah, we got quite a few folks jumping in right now. So,
All right.
It's taking off.
again, gentlemen, if you just joined in, we're just giving a few seconds, get some folks in here, and then we'll kick this.
I'll step right back.
I was about to say, isn't this where we like hold up our favorite brand of booze and say, you know, brought to you by, and pretend that they're actually, you know, yeah, there we go. They're actually, you know, sponsoring us here. Okay.
Yeah, my coffee pot's sponsoring me.
All right. Bruce,
I'm disappointed in you, Doc. You're drinking that Belgian stuff instead of good Virginia beer.
I've got good Virginia beer right there. It's waiting for me. I'm just warming up a little bit with something very caramel.
Fired.
Hey, Bruce, Les, have you guys done your test yet?
Yeah, I sent a test message.
Okay.
I just sent mine. I had to go talk to my technical team. They didn't know what they were doing, but I got them straightened out.
No, I got you. You're square. Waiting on Les and Doc.
You know, it doesn't let me do it, and I think it's got something to do with me using a laptop from 1998 or something. I don't know, but
Hey, I'm right there with you, brother. Mine's at least 10 years old.
that's where mine is. So I'm not sure. Let me try again. I reach over here.
I can do the private one, but it doesn't look like I can do the main one, so
Yep.
I'll let you guys moderate.
Yeah, I had the same issue. I had to go to my PC, bring up YouTube, and then type test in the YouTube. I'm running on two different ones.
Okay, that's how you
gotta
do
do
it.
it on
Yeah.
YouTube.
I couldn't get it to work on my laptop either.
Okay.
Problem.
That
Hey,
makes sense.
we got 3 moderators, so I think we'll make do. All right, looks like we got 6 folks in here, so we'll get ready to kick this off. So starting off, just to introduce myself. If you're tuning into this, you are obviously subscribed channel, so you know who I am. Going over to Alpha Charlie Concepts, aka John, also the founder of UW Gear. He's a quality Marine, American. He was in the Army National Guard in the early 90s and currently owns his own company where he makes high quality chest rigs and other associated gear. Great perspective. He's got his own YouTube channel. Be sure to check him out, Alpha Concepts, as well as his company's YouTube channel, UW Gear. Moving over to Les. So Les has the YouTube channel Pegasus Test. He was a Marine in the early 90s, served in Desert Storm. He's a great American. He is a black hat instructor at the One Shepherd Leadership Institute with me up there, and I've had the fortunate privilege to be able to train with him on multiple occasions. Great American, always brings a great perspective to the chat. He also has his own logistics company, and he's just an expert at moving shit from point A to point B, whether that's here in the United States or overseas. So he brings that to the table as well. So Bruce, y'all should know who Bruce is. He's in like damn near every video I ever post. Bruce is he brings a civilian perspective to the table here, and he's been a good friend of mine for many years. He has a lot of tactical training. He also spent many years as an aircraft mechanic, so he has a lot of inside knowledge in that realm and brings a lot to the table. He also is a armor and does a lot of gunsmithing, where he does a lot of Cerakoting and stuff like that. You guys haven't seen his XM177 and E2. It's just a phenomenal beauty, and I hope to own one of those one day. All right, last one. This is his second returning chat. So we got Dr. Christopher Larsen. He is the founder of the One Shepherd Leadership Institute, going strong for 40 years now. And he's written many books. He's got many leather-bound books, and his house smells of rich mahogany. So we're privileged to have him on. He's a vast wealth of knowledge and really brings a lot to the table. That is our panel for tonight, gentlemen. Just like last time, we got essentially 3 main topics we're going to hit tonight. So starting off, first and foremost, hitting on the current situation in Afghanistan, which from what I'm seeing on the news, it's essentially over. The last American troops just left hours ago, and there's no more American presence there, at least military is concerned. And so we'll dive into that. The second we're going to hit is Lieutenant Colonel Schiller. You guys may have seen the social message that he posted, where he essentially called out a lot of senior leadership, which ended up in him being relieved of his command. So we're going to dive into that and talk about that, kick that around for a while. The third one is going to be a more domestic topic, and we talked about it, and we really couldn't come up with anything until like seconds before we went live. So I think we're just going to hit up COVID and some of the personal liberties that have been sacrificed, at least it seems, because of that whole situation. So that's pretty much it, guys. That's our agenda for tonight. We'll aim for a little over an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and see what happens. Let's kick it off. Who wants to go first? Current situation.
Well, Brent, out of all of us, you served in Afghanistan. You were the longest time boots on the ground. Why don't you step off?
Damn, I just got done talking. Yeah, it's very disheartening, fellas. I can't say enough. I'm not a proponent of pulling all our guys out of there. I know the guys are here in chat, but I've always been, hey, since 9/11, I was balls deep, go in, let's kick some ass, take some names, and then in our current situation now, leave a residual force that we can have that footprint in theater and continue to whoop ass. And that didn't happen. We pulled all our guys out, threw our allies to the wind, and the whole place. And now, essentially, the enemies that we fought for essentially 20 years now rule that country. We have a foothold in Afghanistan anymore, which is on the border of China, right next door, and would have been a good asset, in my opinion, to have in a future conflict with the Chinese, because obviously that's potentially on the horizon. So it's very disheartening being a veteran in both Iraq and Afghanistan to see the current situation right now. And on top of that, to see that there's Americans that are still in country. And here we are one day prior to what they said was going to be the deadline, and we're out. In my opinion, like, hey, if you're going to make this deadline that planning was set by the president, wasn't even set by the enemy, we should at least stay till the last freaking day to make sure we got every possible individual that's in country out of there. But, whatever. It is what it is, and no more American footprint there other than, the civilians that are left behind. So kick it over to somebody else.
Sure, I'll take it. It is what it is, and it is a unmitigated strategic failure. This is a defeat for the United States of America. The likes we have not seen since Vietnam, and it runs many parallels to Vietnam. So I'm going to call it what it is. I don't really want to refer to it as Afghanistan or OEF or the war in Afghanistan. I think we need to start now from this day forward, calling it what it is, and that is Biden's defeat. And to be fair, I'm not naive. Trump started this. I get that. Trump started this exit with his baby, and even before Trump, there were so many missteps, half steps, and look, it's hard to pin on one person. There's plenty of blame to go around. I hope it goes around, but in the end, today, Joe Biden is the president of the United States. He's the one who fully endorsed this defeat, and this exodus. And that's what it is. I mean, we were literally leaving today under fire, under artillery attack by the enemy, by foreign enemy. And, you know, some said it was Taliban, some said it ISIS. Doesn't matter. Neither one of them are from Afghanistan. And so we pulled out in utter and complete defeat. There's no way to sugarcoat this. You know, I can do this. I can play this game. I can say, well, if this was a football game, it'd be 0 to 160 in our favor. Yes. We never had a single tactical loss. Oh, we came close a couple times. There was the Battle of Wanat and the Battle of Cop Keating, and both of those were overrun, partially overrun. And, you know, they were damn near a defeat there, a tactical defeat, but it pulled it from the jaws of the monster, and we get a tactical victory, although the presidential administration certainly viewed it as a strategic defeat and a strategic loss. And so what I'm saying is, let's call it what it is, guys. It's not Afghanistan anymore, or the war in Afghanistan. First off, it belongs to the Taliban and ISIS, and this incident is Biden's defeat.
Yeah, it's an interesting parallel to Vietnam almost in the respect that you had that famous conversation in 1973 between Colonel Harry Summers and General Pham Van Dong, where the colonel went to him and said, you know, any battle, company size or larger, we beat you every time. And the general paused for a moment and went, that's true. It's also irrelevant. Where we go from here is going to be very interesting in the fact that, because as Brent said, it was good strategic position on China's flank, and now they get a secure flank, or at least a flank that doesn't have us on it. And also you're going to have an emboldened China. And another historical parallel, and I mentioned this in the last chat we did, was right after you had Eagle Pull and frequent wind, you immediately had the Mayaguez incident. And I'm sure we're going to see some type of incident like that. You can almost guarantee it.
Yeah, I mean, the risk of sounding like a broken record. I think overall it was time for us to be gone, but I think it was totally an absolute cluster the way it was done. That's not even up for debate. But I think we probably should have left a contingency force of some size there. I mean, we've still got bases in Germany and Japan and South Korea. Why couldn't we have still had something there, bring the majority of the troops home? Doesn't mean we got to continue to be in actual combat operations, but maintain a presence there just like we do in some other countries just for strategic purposes. Because now it's 100% guaranteed China's going to control the whole place and never fire a shot, and they'll get along just fine with the Taliban. So everything that they've got to get out of Afghanistan, they're going to get. There's nothing we can do about it now. It's egg on our face. We've totally dissed all of our allies and ticked them off 10 ways from Sunday. Our world credibility is shot. I mean, the list goes on. So, yeah, I think it was time for us to go, but not in this manner. Just completely ridiculous, for lack of a better word.
Hey, John, because I'm just full of that. And I do want to clarify, there were several comments from our discussion last week, and I think I came across, or at least people concluded, that I thought we should be in Afghanistan. Now, if you go back to, the end of 2001, the months after the September 11th attack by Al-Qaeda, stuck in, from their port of safety there in Afghanistan, I wasn't even convinced we should put boots on the ground then. And then we went in with the Northern Alliance and we did took it over. And if we had even left then, a raid, that would have been just a very complex, drawn out raid. A raid is a legitimate military action and you leave. Okay, I got it. I didn't think we should go into Afghanistan. I didn't think we should occupy territory. And as soon as we defeated the Taliban and the Northern Alliance took over, as far as I was concerned, we should have left just, a couple of weeks later. Full stop. So I just want to clarify that I wasn't a proponent for going into Afghanistan to begin with. So why am I so against us pulling out of Afghanistan now? And I can use it's not a perfect analogy, but it shows you that there are many things we do in life, many things as humans, that we have to commit to for long term. You can sit there and say, hey, girl, let's have some fun tonight and have some sex and all this stuff. And that's fine. Your decision making's there. You know what sucks, though? When those same two people said, whoops, I didn't mean to have a baby. I'll tell you what, let's take out all of our poor decisions and the consequences of those decisions on another human being. And that's my objection to leaving Afghanistan now, is that we've been there for 20 years and we've got a 60-year commitment, and we are abandoning our allies. Come on. France and Belgium and the Netherlands and Norway and England and Canada and Australia. The list goes on. South Korea. The list goes on of the people who have served, sent their military men and women to fight and to die and to get wounded and to all those other horrors of war. They've done that because they believed America was going to back the Afghanistan people and rebuild this. And so now for us to say, meh. And I also want to, in that closing remark there, or in that remark, I should say, not closing remark, but I want to point out that there's this myth. Hey, as soon as we leave Afghanistan, the killing stops. Not even close.
No, it's going into overdrive.
Yep, the killing is in overdrive right now. We were just having off screen, we're having a discussion about this today, about 30, the small group of Christian ministry. And there's Buddhist ministry and other ministries there as well. And no, these aren't foreigners I'm talking about. I'm not talking about Americans or Europeans or South Koreans. I'm saying Afghan Christians. And they are now on the run. Last time we heard, 9 of them have been captured, 2 of them beheaded as of yesterday. Look, the killing fields have just opened up business. And so this notion that we haven't betrayed people and there will not be consequences of life as we exit is a farce. And that's my objection to leaving now. All right.
Bruce, get on in there.
Yeah, well, I can't disagree with any of you. I think of this thing, the big picture, which Doc just touched on. Though I had a high school football coach named Dwight Hotstetler. Dwight Hotstetler grabbed me by the face mask one time and screamed in my face. He says, "If you're going to F up, you F up at 110%." And I've always remembered that. That stuck with me my whole life. And I think that it's good advice. It's helped me many, many times. And I think it's applicable here in that even if you don't agree with the decision to move into Afghanistan and nation build, which I don't necessarily agree with that, once you've committed to that, you see it through. You see it all the way through, because you just might be victorious in it if you do it and give 110%, even if it's not the right decision. So here we are, and Doc talked about this in the last stream, but it would have meant a 60-year commitment with a small footprint of troops in the country. But I think that we as a country have to be willing to do that. And the fact that we weren't, and it shows a weakness in our country. And I'm going to explain that weakness. It's a weakness in a country where you don't have a dictator or a leader that is the leader of the country for more than 4 years necessarily, because we Americans can change our mind and we Americans can change our presidency. And when you do that in the middle of a war that was the decision of a president from 2, 3, 4 presidents ago, and that president decides, hey, my people or my views are I don't want to be there anymore, and that president is in charge of the military, that's that. And I saw there was a comment where some people were blaming the military leadership and the generals, and I do get that. But when you're a general and the ultimate leader that's in command of all branches of military, being the president, comes to you and says, your job is to get us out of this situation, well, that really is your job. And you can tell him, hey, look, that's not going to end well, which is exactly what I think what happened when Trump came to the decision. And they said, this isn't going to end well if we just up and leave tomorrow. This will be an absolute disaster. We have to slow things down. This may not happen in your presidency. It's going to take a while to do it and do it right. I think that was the right decision to make. And I do believe that was the advice he got. Whereas in this situation, the president came in on day one and says, we're out of there by an arbitrary date. We'll say it's September 11th or it's today, whatever the date may be. And no matter what you say, no matter how bad you say it's going to be, we're out of there. That's your date. all the generals are left scrambling at that point, and they don't have a whole lot to do other than to go publicly and go against their commander-in-chief, which we're going to talk about a lower level person in leadership that did that here in a little bit. And you see how that ends, or you execute the job that your boss gives you, and it is what it is. Like Dr. Larsen said, you do the best you can of what you get.
No, I think Doc summed it up perfectly.
Yeah, I hate to say this, but I kind of want Afghanistan to evolve into just outright civil war. I want the Taliban to suffer. I mean, I'm banking on the fact right now that the people that have lived there for 20 years and had more freedom than they ever had under the Taliban will just say, oh shit, no, we ain't going back to this. And then the Taliban will start experiencing some of that insurgency that they've been waging for last. So I'm kind of banking on that fact. But I hate to say it, I don't think the U.S. is going to support the new Northern Alliance whatsoever. Every question I've seen from the press to senior leaders and stuff, the press briefings, they just either skirt around the question or they just say they don't answer for that right now or something along those lines.
Yeah, I agree completely. It sounds, I was hoping the same thing, that we sort of puppet master, we can support this thing from behind the scenes, not necessarily putting Americans at risk in that country, but supplying them with the intel and the support that they need. It doesn't sound like that's what they're going to get. Every time that they seem to be asked about that, it seems like, well, we gave the Afghan army the tools that they needed, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, I got to agree with you there, Bruce, because if they don't get the aid from us, who's it going to come from? It's not like the Brits are overwhelmed with equipment. It's not like the Germans are going to start giving them stuff. Northern Alliance is in a hole. Now, luckily, they have the Panjshir Valley, which is almost untakeable, according to history. But where's that endless stream of supplies that they're going to have to hold the Taliban at bay? Now, one of the things that may work for us is all our modern vehicles are pretty labor intensive. They're parts intensive. Maintenance is going to catch them soon. Not right away, but it's going to get them.
That's
right. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say that's 100% accurate. I mean, when I was in Afghanistan, we had MRAPs, we had MAP-Vs, and man, those were always going down. Now, so I had the benefit and privilege, I should say, of deploying to Afghanistan with the reserves, which my first two tours in Iraq were, but in the reserves, it's a different beast. And the reason I say that is because reservists, 90% of the time, they're doing a civilian occupation, right? Literally in my infantry rifle platoon, I had mechanics, plumbers, and all kinds of stuff. And these guys were on patrol bases, fixing gun trucks right there on the spot. And, one of the things I saw with, I think it was like an Afghan security forces commander, is he was saying that one of the U.S. blunders is we were having all these U.S. contractors come in to maintain their vehicles, their aircraft, and everything else, and they weren't really teaching Afghans how to do that. And that was one of the things that Afghans were becoming reliant on the Americans to fix those vehicles and aircraft and stuff like that. And once we start pulling out, we start pulling contractors with us, all that shit don't work no more.
Yeah, I had a buddy who once owned a simple 998 Humvee. That's a vehicle designed to have a maintenance battalion behind it. And he tried to use it as his daily driver, and after 3 years just had to give up. I mean, for him to get one new tire was the cost of me replacing all 4 tires on my Suburban. And anytime he took that thing in to do a repair he couldn't do himself, he was a grand down in the hole automatically.
Yeah, I saw a similar buddy out here in Virginia had the exact same experience, about 3 years, and he gave up too. It's a great weekend vehicle, but he was trying to make it his prime vehicle and it just wasn't working. Hey, let me go back to something you said there, Brent, and it's not completely out of the question. Your point that, hey, maybe Afghanistan and maybe the Afghan people will say, nah, this isn't going to stand. Let me remind you, you've got kind of a couple of models here. You've got the Somali model, and I'm afraid that's what this is, but you've also got the Iraq model. And the Iraq model is that we leave in the end of 2011, And halfway through 2012, ISIS has taken over one-third of Iraq and the city of Mosul, the third largest city in the country. The Iraqis lose, and they lose badly. And that loss is sustained for quite some years, but eventually, a handful of years later, they gradually pull themselves up by the bootstraps, and they start fighting back, and they have all but defeated Daesh throughout Iraq now. Daesh pretty much only exists in Syria. And so you do have that where you say, wait a minute, these people might just pull it together. Now, the difference being, what's the difference between Iraqis and Somalis? And I would say it's this. The Somalis, and I fear the same is true of the Afghan people, they don't have a national identity. They don't say, I'm Afghan. They say, I'm Dari, or I'm Pashto, or I'm, Uzbek, or whatever it is. And they don't have that national identity that we are one people. We are a diverse, plural community, but we are nonetheless Iraqis. And Somalis didn't have that either. And they've never recovered. And I'm afraid that's what's going to happen to Afghanistan. But that said, I don't know. There's enough know-how and willpower that maybe these oppressed peoples will stand up and start rebelling against ISIS and the Taliban. We could hope.
I think throughout history that is always the case, though, isn't it? That when you beat people down enough, eventually they will revolt. And that's different for every culture and every country, because some people they have much less tolerance than others. But that throughout history has always been the case. When people are beat down too much, they finally take knives and hoes and pitchforks to the street and take care of business, because typically those that are in charge are far fewer than the great masses that are out there. I think the question here is just going to be how soon will we see that, and will it materialize in this country?
Get in there, John. You've been quiet for too long.
I just been thinking and listening and thinking, one of the two. No, that's the only thing that gives me hope, is that stuff will start falling apart on them. And just going back to what you're saying about the maintenance thing, I'm sure Les can attest to this. Back in the early 90s, you could PMCS a Humvee one day and it'd be perfectly fine, and PMCS it the next day and wouldn't be fit to drive. Like, this thing just had a knack for randomly deciding to break stuff and fall apart. So without knowing how to properly do that and then maintain it on top of that and then get parts, etc., that's kind of a back hope on my end that stuff will just start falling apart on them. Now, not to be the flying ointment, but just devil's advocate, there is also the flip side that China could start reverse engineering parts and supplying them with parts and training on how to maintain them and keep them up. So does China make that investment in exchange for continuing to get all the mineral rights and stuff that we know they want? Who knows?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting conundrum for China in the fact that, Afghan is a Muslim country. That is not an issue that's in dispute. The Chinese have problems with the Muslim Uyghurs. And are they going to be sponsoring a neighbor on their border that's got the potential to create a lot of trouble for them? Because if you look worldwide, Muslims will back Muslims. It tends to be a rule. Yes, they'll kill each other in great big bleeding batches too, but they tend to back each other up when they have a common enemy,
right?
Whether it's materially, fighting wise, or otherwise. So China's got a double-edged sword they're playing with.
They do. It's just going to depend on what's the bigger end game for them. What do they figure is the bigger risk and reward payoff?
Yeah, that's going to be a problem if China is able to wiggle their way in there, and they got interest in there for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's the other thing. The great game will start again too, because if China really starts to get entrenched into Afghanistan in a way that the Russians were, all of a sudden the Indians are going to get real interested in Afghanistan. and that just starts the whole thing over again.
Right. Yeah, it's a recipe for disaster, no question. So we can't really discuss Afghanistan without talking about the 13, servicemen that just lost their lives. We had 11 Marines, 1 Navy corpsman, and 1 soldier that were killed in a suicide bombing, which baffles me because I remember a couple of days ago them saying that there's no Al Qaeda threat, and it almost in some of these press briefings that they were downplaying the Taliban as being the terrorist organization. During these presses, did you guys get that vibe at all? Because I sure as hell did.
Oh, definitely, absolutely.
They weren't downplaying it. They were straight up saying that they were expecting them to provide security and provide them intelligence and working with them.
Yeah.
I mean, this is
well, they're the government now, and they're getting treated like a government. I mean, I don't like it, but I can understand the train of thought. I disagree with it, but I can understand it.
But
they're the government now. They're getting treated like a government.
Yeah, but even other governments, if they were responsible in the past for killing American citizens, we wouldn't provide them critical information and intelligence.
True that. That is just maybe a segue to our next topic, because that's kind of high crimes and misdemeanors.
Well, all right. Yeah. So let's. I mean, for me, the coverage of the Taliban by the U.S. media, it stank, guys. It just, oh my God, it was just horrifying. I mean, the rhetoric of it was this: hey, the Taliban is the default, victor here, so we're going to deal with them as if they're a government, and anything that happens, because Biden administration is directly dealing with them through whichever agent, federal agency, the soup of the day. But the point is, hey, we don't want to make Biden look bad. And so Biden has gotten promises by the Taliban not to attack. So all of these attacks, well, they're ISIS. Well, I don't care. I don't care which terrorist organization. And don't get me wrong. I understand the difference between ISIS and Taliban as I understood the difference between Al Qaeda and Taliban. But what I am saying is they collaborate. When it's convenient for both, they collaborate. And certainly within a realm, ISIS wouldn't be in Afghanistan if it weren't for the Taliban. So, through implicit, agreement. So here's my point. ISIS, in this case, ISIS is acting on behalf of Taliban. And the U.S. news media, not the rest of the world, mind you, but the U.S. news media was saying, "Oh, well, this isn't Taliban. Let's be clear here. They wouldn't betray Joe Biden in his moment of defeat." Really?
Yeah, the whole thing stinks, like you said. I mean, could you imagine a year ago? I'm not caught up because I can't imagine this even happening a week ago. But can you imagine a year ago if our previous president came out and said, we're going to entrust the Taliban with the security of an airfield, or we're going to entrust the Taliban with the security of checkpoints going into a military structure like an airfield? It would be unheard of. The things that they make fun of him for saying, that would be out there. No one would foresee it. And yet we have this president and his administration saying exactly that. Now we all know that the Afghan military is a corrupt organization, and there's a lot of corruption there. We can take it a step further and know that the Taliban is much more corrupt than that group would have been. And my question is this. There was just a comment where there were 180 civilian, non-military people killed in addition to our military people that were killed. I want to know how many of them were ledgered in as being Taliban. I'm going to bet you it was none of them. And that tells you that you can't trust the Taliban with the security of anything, much less the security of a gate at our military installation. To me, I'm blown away that they would even stand in front of you with a straight face and try to make that argument. It's absolutely crazy.
Well, just to piggyback on what you're saying, Bruce, if President Trump, if it would have come out in the media that President Trump had given the Taliban a list of American citizens and important Afghan citizens to go get and bring to the airport, like they would have had him impeached before the ink was dry on the paper. I mean, they would have flipped out over that. And yet they hail it when the current occupier of the White House does it like it's no big deal.
Well, it comes to that thing that, if whatever Trump did, the opposite must be the correct answer. I mean, that's clearly the philosophy, and it's very frustrating. The other thing that we have here is just anybody believing this narrative that they're saying that the Taliban and ISIS don't get along, they don't like each other, and they're going to go at each other's throats the moment we're gone. Anybody buying that?
They're kissing cousins. They'll hate each other publicly when it's time to hate each other, and then when it's time to work together, they'll cover each other's back and work together.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. A suicide bomber with enough explosives strapped to him to do all the damage he did and not get stopped at a checkpoint? Come on.
Yeah, I might have fell off the turnip truck, but it wasn't yesterday.
Exactly. I mean, they're not even like acknowledging the obvious.
Hey, I just want to point out this comment because, man, I don't know if you've been here this whole time, but I mean, I think we all said that, Trump is partly at fault for this. And
nobody's praising Trump.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like a lot of the things that, former President Trump did, but he is by no means, in my opinion, a great leader.
He's not without fault.
Right. So there's so much stuff that he did when he was the president that it just irked the hell out of me. Now, I say that, with the caveat of I like a lot of the stuff he did, a lot, and I like that he was bold, especially with the Chinese, because we haven't seen that from an American president in a long time. But stuff like, for instance, people that I highly respect, my commanding general, General Mattis, was his second dev, and the second that General Mattis resigned over.
Yep, we lost you, Brent.
Lost your audio, Brent.
Yeah, but let me finish that up for Brent, because I think I know where he was going with that. And the simple fact was, when Mattis resigned because he had an issue, Trump just trashed the guy. He's kind of like, oh, he's mild dog Mattis. Oh, he's not that good a general after all. Bullshit. Mattis is a military genius, and it's all a privilege for all of us that did serve under him to have served under him.
Well, that gets to an emotional maturity. The bad guy is always bad, and he never does anything right. I don't care who the bad guy is. Name a name. Satan himself never does anything right. Oh yeah, and the good guy is purely good and has no flaws. Has never had a pimple in his life. And everything. If he farts, it's rainbows. I'm sorry. That's a dogmatic, very immature. Emotionally immature as well as intellectually inferior position to strike. The good guys have their flaws and make their mistakes. The bad guys have their moments in the sun, and that's all there is to it. So you can, this idea that we have to categorize people as good guys and bad guys. How about we say, no, this is what they did, and we hold them accountable for that, because I don't think all the good in the world erases any of the bad that you did. And all the bad you did, it shouldn't erase any of the good you did. And so this is this weird dogmatic conversation we get in all too often.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Brent, I don't think we have you back yet.
Yeah, Brent's audio was back, but now it's gone. But yeah, I mean, let me speak for myself here, because I know all of you feel the same way too. Just because we're praising a president on one thing doesn't necessarily mean that we support everything that we did. I'm probably one of the one of the presidents that I feel did that I completely didn't support, which was President Obama. I could certainly name some things he did really well. As a matter of fact, one of those things he did really well is he drove the absolute hell out of people in other countries that were planning any kind of attacks or anything against us. I hope that if Joe Biden has any common sense at all, he doesn't talk to Trump. He doesn't talk to any of the former presidents except for Barack Obama and says, hey, where's your maps on the people you were droning? And how did you get drone production so high? Because we are droning the absolute hell out of them under your administration. And I want to continue that type of attack with my over the horizon program that I've got in place starting as of today. Look, don't mistake that for me being an Obama supporter, but when somebody does something right, I'll tell them that they did something right. And when somebody's doing something wrong, I'll say they did something wrong.
Well said, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big critic of Trump. I could not stand Trump in many regards. Not as a person, I don't mean that. I don't know him as a person. I'm saying as a president and as a leader. And one of my biggest places that I butt heads with him, that I refused to vote for him, was because of his dealings with the Second Amendment. You know, the bump stock, the silencers, all of this. And I was just so incredibly disappointed. Well, but a colleague of mine points out, an old Army buddy of mine, he pointed out, yeah, that's fair, but look at something else. Look at who Trump put in to the Supreme Court, and look how that's going to impact the Second Amendment over the next, 20, 30, 40 years. And that's a valid point. You got to give Trump credit where credit's due, even though I'm not a fan of the man. And so, yeah, you're right, Bruce. There's no pure good guy, no pure bad guy, including the 5 people on this panel right now.
Well said.
Can I get a radio check?
Gotcha now.
5x5, brother.
All right. Back in the fight. Hey, I just back to the Mattis thing real quick. Is I know a lot of these calls, I'm like, why aren't these military leaders resigning over stuff? Well, that's what General Mattis did. He resigned when the president didn't take his advice. He resigned. So, take it for what it's worth. That's an example right there.
Yeah. Good leadership. Speaking of good leadership, I think I saw a Marine Lieutenant Colonel showing exemplary leadership this week. Do we all see that?
Yes.
Outstanding.
All right. So that's our segue. That's our cue.
Yeah, I believe his resignation was based on one of his commander's comments on social media saying that if he had any honor at all, he would resign. And shortly thereafter, there was a resignation. So to Brent's point, I suppose that is how it is done, and that is what happened in this case.
All right. So, yeah. So let me preface this because there might be some people in here that don't know the situation. Please stop me if my audio cuts out again. So Lieutenant Colonel Schiller, he was the commander at School of Infantry East. That's at School of Infantry. That's where all O3s and grunts are trained. So you get done at recruit training, you go to SOI, and you become basically trained infantryman before you go to the Fleet Marine Force. So he was the battalion commander there. What he did is he went on his social media platform, I think it was Facebook, in uniform, and essentially called for senior leaders, to take accountability for the actions. And he's pointed out specific individuals, I think he even said the Commandant of the Marine Corps. So, I mean, it caused a lot of controversy. I'm going to speak on that. I'm going to go last because I don't want to taint any of your opinions. But I do want to hear what you guys have to say about this. So I'll kick it over to the next person. I'll speak last.
Well, I'll step it off. The colonel put it out there, and he put his money where his mouth was, because, he said his thing. He asked for accountabilities for his leaders. And Brent, as well as I do, that's the exact same accountability they taught us in NCO school. And damn it, if they can demand it of us as corporals and sergeants, why can't our leaders give us that level of accountability? I remember being taught as a Marine NCO, I do the right thing regardless of the consequences. That is what I am obligated to do. So therefore, our leaders are obligated to do the right thing. Now let's go down the pick your own adventure path here for a second. Imagine on the issue of retaining Bagram until this pullout was done. You know, if the president was saying no, what do you think would be the social fallout in America if the entire Joint Chiefs of Staff resigned publicly over a policy with defense? Do you really think they're going to go forward with those 8 guys turning in their resignation? No, whatever the policy is, it's going to take a hard turn right there. You know, the president's boxed in. So these guys do need to be held accountable for not holding up their end of their responsibilities. Furthermore, 3 days later, the colonel followed up with a thing. He was told, you know, if he really believes this, to put his resignation in. Damn if he didn't do it before his retirement. So he ain't going to get jack shit from his nation for not putting in his full 20 years. You know, and he straight up said he didn't want it. You know, I don't know if that's, you know, I haven't met the man. I haven't served under him. I don't know that much about him before he put this video. Matter of fact, I don't know anything about him before this video. But I would have to say, if that's not bravado, damn, he backed his claim up big time.
Yeah, I'll jump in there and say, you know, that's good leadership. And he demonstrated it. He said, look, I mean, that's exactly what he said is, look, I demand accountability of you, my senior leaders. Let me show you what that looks like. And then publicly went and did it. Damn, that's a warrior leader right there. I wish his message hadn't fallen on deaf ears, but it very clearly has.
Yeah, there's a comment that says Schiller for cabinet under Trump 2024. Dude is risking everything for the right reasons in an honorable manner. I want that leadership. Yeah, Havoc, I hope so. Not necessarily Trump's cabinet in 2024, maybe, but let's hope that he lands on his feet and bigger, better things come to him that reinforce to him that making the right decision, making an honorable decision and going with your gut and your fellow Marines that are on your level and below you, pay off having that intestinal fortitude to give away that. What 3 years from now he would be set for retirement. And I'm sure it would total a large sum of money. Being able to go with your convictions instead of that. Hopefully he can rest easy. He'll land on his feet, and it will be the right decision, not only for him, for his beliefs and how he feels inside, but also financially. He'll land on his feet, and everything will be okay for him and his family moving forward.
So I'll play devil's advocate. My question is, aside from everything the guy did, just going off the 2 videos that I saw, my questions would be, what's his end game? Like, what's his motivation? What's his goal? What's he trying to accomplish? What's he trying to do? Because he gave up a lot. I mean, if you really break it down and look at what all he just walked away from and the position that he's now put himself in, if you're going to do that, you better have really thought this out and have some kind of plan going, because that's a bit much just to kind of be winging it, you know, by the cuff. So I don't know. I don't know the guy. I don't know enough about him, but it's okay. What's your end game? To put it in military terms, if you're going to be conducting an operation, what's the commander's intent here? You know. We can start reading into all the little things, because I've seen a lot of this on social media. A lot of folks have focused on the chessboard that he had in front of him, and folks have pointed out that, in fact, I'll give credit, my youngest son looked at it, and he's a bit of an actual chess player, and he pointed out that the way the chessboard was set up, he was about 3 moves from an unbeatable checkmate with the way that board was set up. Other people on social media pointed that out too. Was that just coincidence, or was that intentional? What was he trying to say with that? Because he mentioned checkmate in his video talking about it. So it makes me think he intentionally put it there, but what for? Where are you going with this? I guess I'm hesitant just to jump on the bandwagon real quick, I'm not jumping off of it. I'm just not jumping on you. And I'm kind of like, okay, I need to know a little bit more here before I say, go Colonel.
That's a fair point, John. I mean, it is. Look, we can only see what we see, right? And this is playing out in social media. So I'm making calls. I'm making value statements based only on what I can see in that social media, right? If I could see everything, that might mature my understanding so that I do a 180. And I reserve the right to do that, to turn around and say, oh, I was wrong last week. In fact, I found out this new information, and now I think the guy's, an XYZ, whatever it is. But I will tell you this. Here's what it looks like. It looks like he decided, and it certainly sounds like this, he decided that he could finish up his Marine Corps with no honor, or he could walk away from it now and distance himself from the corruption and say, no, I'll leave with honor. I'll leave without my pension, but I'll leave with honor. It's sometimes the end game is the end game. What I mean by that is, back to the Buddhist monks in Southeast Asia in the 1960s that were setting themselves on fire to light the way towards peace. Now, that sounds as counterintuitive as you can get, but they were self-immolating themselves to death to say, guys, stop your violence. Let me be a light of peace. Is this an exact analogy again? No, we're never comparing apples and apples. But you know what I'm saying. The sentiment is there. And it certainly has the appearance that that's what this gentleman did. A pretty selfless act that I think, frankly, shows him to be the highest of integrity. Now, for all I know, Brent's going to come and say, no, man, the guy, he was robbing banks and they just found out, the machine gun and the mask in his closet. How do I know? But
right.
Sure, it could be John Paul Van.
I wasn't disagreeing with you. I was just saying that's kind of where my headspace is at. I fully admit to being a little bit cynical when it comes to these things, because it's not directly related, but going back to earlier this year, that whole stupid thing up in Michigan with the governor up there, and 3/4 of the people involved turn out to be FBI informants. I'm just cynical at this point. Every time I see something like this, just all right, I want to jump on this bandwagon. I really do. But it's jaded me a little bit. So, and again, like I said, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm legitimately kind of in limbo land of, okay, where do I go with this?
Yeah, I tell you what, it's gut wrenching to watch.
Yep. All right, Brent.
All right.
Walk the line carefully.
All right. Well, so let me just say, before I say this, I know this is not going to be very popular. Okay. Now, I'm not saying I don't agree with the things that he said. Okay. However, I think it's too soon. Okay. Number one, I got 2 points here. One, I think it's too soon. We don't know what the senior leader said. This might be a thing where everybody except the president said to do plan A, and then the president took plan B. We don't know. Okay? That might unveil itself down the road. That might have been the case. Now, you could argue the thing what I think Les was saying about, well, then they all resign. Well, that's a possibility too. Obviously, that's what General Mattis did when the president wasn't taking his advice. But we don't know. I think it's too soon to make such a demand. The second thing is, and this is where I think this is probably going to be unpopular with a lot of viewers, but the Marine Corps, it's a uniform service. Okay, when you're wearing that uniform, and his social media posts, he was wearing the uniform of United States Marine. When you wear that uniform, you are representing the United States Marine Corps with everything that comes out of your cum dumpster, man. I mean, everything you say.
We lost you again, Brent.
Oh no, we lost him. We lost your
Brent's
audio.
exactly right, though. When you wear the uniform, you're Marine Corps property, and you got to obey their rules. And to the colonel's credit, he did say that if he was in the position of his seniors, he would have relieved himself too. So you got to give him that integrity point there. But Brent's absolutely right. I do agree with him. You know, whatever opinion it is, you do got to follow the party line. And the Marine Corps is also an organization that believes in Napoleonic justice. You are guilty and proven until proven innocent. And then on top of that, they still may punish you just in case.
All right, Brent, you got your audio back?
Nope, you're back.
You're back, dude.
All right. Okay. So moving on. So yeah, I think you guys got the gist of that. Another point is you can't, you know, when you say stuff like that, you're undermining the senior leaders. All right. For instance, I'm a company first sergeant. I answer to my company commander. Sometimes I have more years of service than my company commander. I can advise him on what I think is the most appropriate course of action. But at the end of the day, it's his call. Okay. If I go out in front of the company and say, you know, the company commander's an idiot, you know, this is not how we should do this, I've just undermined his authority. Okay. Now all the Marines below him have lost their, you know, trust and confidence in the company commander's ability to lead. Now, I think what happened with this video is on a grander scale of the example I just cited, but I'm using that as an example here on what happened with this video, in my opinion. Okay. Does it mean I don't agree with the things he said? No, it's not exactly what I'm saying. I'm just saying I think it's too soon, and I don't think he should have done that in uniform or the way he presented it. That's all I'm saying. Thoughts?
Well, he said that in his very first video. You know, he addresses that and says, look, I don't even know if I'm going to release this. If I do, he recognizes the consequences of his action as he's recording. He's saying that out loud. And so that just goes to, you know, to validate your point there, Brent, that he knew he shouldn't be representing. He was not authorized to represent the United States Marine Corps, and yet he did. And so, and ultimately that, and as you said, that and the fact that he undermined his own chain of command in so doing, that's where his conduct is unbecoming of an officer, and that's where he's asked to resign. I mean, he agreed with it, as Les said. He said, look, I would do the same thing. I'm out of line here. But I still think, you know, you hear him articulate his belief set, and he was saying, I am out of line here, and I'm going to go out of line, and I'm going to suffer the consequences because I believe accountability is that important. And so that gets to what he's saying. And I know what you're saying. You've already said it, Brent. You said, yeah, you agree with what he's saying, but not how he did it and when he did it. And I didn't even think about the timing, but you're correct. I think he was premature. I certainly hope we see accountability here in the coming weeks and months.
So two things on that point. I will give him that. Like, he's totally accepted, hey, I did this, they canned me. Okay, you know, whatever. I knew it was coming. I did it anyway. It would be different if he was whining and complaining, oh, I spoke out and they relieved me. No, he's like, yep, I did it. I expected this. I knew it was coming. I had my box packed before I ever put the video up, right? That, I'll give him props for that. To the accountability point, I don't want to say a whole lot because I don't have a whole lot of details. But I do know a really good friend of mine got to actually meet with one of his senators today. And things were discussed. And the word is there's going to be some accountability. Now, to what end? I think that's still way open for speculation. But all I can do is cross my fingers on that point and say, I hope there is some accountability at some level.
Yeah, let me just say, I 100% think that Lieutenant Colonel is a stellar Marine. I mean, if you're given a position, you know, battalion commander at School of Infantry East, he's obviously already been a battalion commander of some, you know, Fleet Marine Force units. I have no question, you know, impeccable Marine infantry officer. And he even put in his video about, like, you know, praising Marine infantrymen as opposed to everybody's always talking about special operations, this, that, and the other. And he's like, look, it's the Marine grunts that are out there operating out of patrol bases and going out on patrol, and then they're coming back in the same shit. They're not launching from the submarine, doing their raid, and going back to the comfort of the freaking submarine. He kind of made that point. Like I think he is a stellar officer. And at the end of the day, what happens is the Marine Corps just lost an outstanding Marine infantry officer. Okay, now that's what I'm getting to. I would have rather he took his disagreements through the chain of command, and we retained a superb infantry officer, as opposed to putting his senior leaders in a position where they had to relieve him. They don't have a choice. They don't have a choice, gentlemen. So now we're down one stellar with combat experience Marine infantry officer, and the Marine Corps is a lesser place.
And that goes back to my old point. What's the end game here that made him feel like he was more useful outside of the situation versus being inside and being able to affect it from the inside? That's my big question, because like I said, that was a huge move. What made him think that it was better to do what he did versus doing what you said, Brent, of taking it through the chain of command, voicing it inside, and trying to make accountability and change happen from within? And then if nothing got done, then coming out, 6 months from now, I tried, here's what happened, if you got that frustrated. But what is that end game that made him feel like he had to do this right now without doing like what you said? What puzzle pieces are we missing in the bigger picture?
Maybe it's simply a case in his, for lack of a better term, soul. It's like the speech that Mario Savio once gave back in the 1960s. There's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies on the gears, upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop and indicate to the people who own it, who run it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all. That's a speech that when I learned it as a teenager has always rung with me. And maybe he just reached that point.
Could be. Could very well be. And again, because we don't know what he's privy to, what information he might already know. It could be like Brent said, it could have been all the top leadership was totally against this and the president made the decision anyway, or it could be the exact opposite. He could have seen and been privy to all the top leadership. Yes, Mr. President, great idea. Let's do this. And just him feeling like that's it. There's no other recourse. I can't do anything from within.
Yeah, I mean, let's recognize that people, and particularly our warriors and their families, particularly the families of fallen warriors, are going to feel abandonment here, guys. They're going to feel, they're going to very rightfully, they're going to feel abandonment in this decision to abandon Afghanistan in defeat. Their sons and daughters were killed, were injured, or served under, austere conditions. When you have that and that's thrown away, when that service is just discarded like a used napkin.
And Doc, we've been here before, haven't we?
Absolutely, we have.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, it's a sticky situation. It's a tragedy all around.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, there's this Marine infantry officer is a stellar individual, and we're at a loss for having him relieved. But again, and he knew it. He knew what he was doing. He put his leadership in a position where they had no choice. They had to relieve him.
Yeah.
Yep. Like I said, I think there's still a whole lot of unanswered questions yet with the whole situation. So,
well, we're at a little over an hour. So we can segue into our domestic topic. At the beginning, we kind of thought about talking about COVID and how some, freedoms have been suspended because of this.
Yeah.
So we can say into that, or we can talk about something else. It's up to you guys.
Yeah, it's a good time to segue into that. I mean, those of you that are following, keep in mind they're already cutting Brent's audio, so who knows what will happen to this feed as we move forward talking about the old Chinese virus. But at this point, who cares, right? It's been a good show so far.
Yeah.
Somebody kick it off.
Yeah.
John, you like to say.
I don't think people really and truly grasp the magnitude of how much freedom is been lost, is being lost, and could potentially be lost from what's going on. It's on a extraordinarily large and in-depth scale. I'm privileged to have some really good friends that are medical professionals, and I kind of have, access to their thoughts and information kind of behind the scenes. And I know most all of them seriously disagree with the official line that's being put out regarding the virus, the vaccines, the whole 9 yards.
Well, the frustrating thing through this disease has been is how much people's faith has been taken advantage of. The government came out and asked us 2 weeks, flatten the curve. Then it took a little longer, and it took a little longer, and people went along with it. And then when you started to question some stuff, and really basic stuff, like you go into the sheets, and because of COVID, you can't use the soda machine and you can't use the ice cream machine, but somehow the coffee machine's okay. First, you didn't need masks. Now you need masks. And for all of us that served in the military, we all went through NBC training. We know that a piece of cloth paper ain't doing jack squat, and yet we can't get leveled about that because you need a mask. No, you don't need a mask. You need 2 masks. Oh, you only need a mask indoors. No, you got to have your mask outdoors no matter what, even if you got the vax. I mean, there is no information out there that you can believe. Because anything you want to point out about this disease, I can go online, tap a little, and I'll find somebody in a position of authority contradicting it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, this is something that I've been dealing with directly for the last, since it became a thing, that is, at work, on the medical side. And, I tell you that there's an opinion out there for everybody, and I'm not sure if it's purely political. I know that we like to sometimes sort of think of it like that at the mainstream media, but it also depends on how it's, people are just fearful. And whenever you take advantage of that fear, you have so many people in this country that just they're not spun up on anything medical. They're not spun up on this at all. They're just going to take whoever says that they're in charge. They're going to take their advice. And what we've been getting in this country has been mixed advice from those that are in control. It's went back and forth. And there's a tremendous amount of distrust. And it's not completely political, because if you look at the largest group of people that you can put into, and say in terms of race, that you can put into a group, are Black Americans. Black Americans are distrustful as a whole of the entire vaccine. Can you blame them? They're not that stupid. They know a little bit about history. Stories get told, and they understand that our government has lied to them before and has abused them before. So whenever the government comes out and goes, hey, we need to give you a shot of this or this, they're like, well, now hold on just a minute now. I'm not so sure about that. And I don't blame them one bit for that. So, and that group of people, typically votes Democrat, probably 90% or better. So think about it, right? Is it purely a Democrat Republican thing? Not so much. And then you throw libertarians in there. You got all these other groups of people, whether they're religious or whatever the case may be. People are just highly divided on this thing. I just don't know where we went from when I was young. When I was young, it was like live and let live. It was like, look, do what you want to do. As long as you're not hurting anybody else, nobody really cares. You can make your own choice for what happens to your body, what you choose to do. And now we're at this point that we're being pressured, whether you've had a vaccine or you haven't. I fully support those that want to go out and get a vaccine and those that don't. It's, to me, do what you want to do. It's your choice. And if you end up dying from it one way or the other, You made that choice yourself, and no one forced you to do something that you didn't want to do.
See, that's exactly where I'm at, Bruce. I'm on the same page as you. I don't care one way or the other. If you want to get the vaccine, get it. If you don't want to get the vaccine, get it. That's your choice. If the vaccine works and you get it, then it shouldn't matter to you if anybody else gets it or not. Where I draw the line is when you start telling me that you're going to physically force me to do something like that I may or may not want to do, or you're going to start jeopardizing my livelihood depending on whether I get it or not, etc. That's when I start getting real irritated and pushed to the edge of bad thoughts. Because no, you do you, I'll do me, and we'll be fine. But when you start, when and the division part, and you're so right, because I've talked about this in videos before. When I'm cruising around stuff, and there are lots of people out there that are calling for physical violence against people who don't take the vaccine, it's like, really? Have you really thought that all the way through? Is that really a hill you want to climb up and die on? Because there are some folks that just as adamant as you are about something being done to them to make them take it. There's some that are equally as adamant about, you're not going to make me take it. So, yeah, like I just saw today, there are a couple of states now, because they've tried all these different coercion methods that aren't working. And now they're talking about, okay, since we're having a hard time legally letting businesses mandate that somebody has to get this, now what the couple of these states are trying to do is take measures so that if you lose your job because you didn't get the vaccine, then you're no longer eligible for unemployment benefits.
That's crazy.
So there's all these little ways that they're coming at you to try to, coerce people and force people, for lack of a better word, into doing it. And it's like, man, y'all are playing with fire here, because at some point you're going to seriously cost somebody something. A personal example, my cousin that's like my brother, he's got a cousin on his mom's side from the other distant part of the family. She got the first shot of the vaccine. It almost killed her. She was in ICU for 2 weeks. She's pretty much been told, you cannot get the second shot. It's almost a certainty it will kill you. No. Her employer says 100% you have to be vaccinated or you won't be employed here, and no medical exceptions. So she has no choice but to fix it to be out of a job. How many people are going to be put in that position that, not saying it's right or wrong, but somebody that's just at their absolute mental wit's end, and you do that to them and push them over that proverbial edge? That's a powder keg you're sitting on. And I don't think people really truly comprehend and understand the division that's in the country right now because of all of it, and the size of the powder keg that we're sitting on. That's just
absolutely. And look at the stuff that's going on down in Australia. They're setting up camps, for the unvaccinated, wellness centers, or the fact that they arrested a guy because he left his quarantine. And I don't know if you all saw the pictures. They're all in biohazard suits. You'd think he was infected with sarin gas or a zombie virus, And then you got New York talking about vaccine passports, which I guess maybe is better than maybe having unvaccinated walk around with yellow stars of David on their coats or something.
Yeah, it certainly reminds you of that, doesn't it, Les? It reminds you of those yellow stars.
The parallels are rather scary, because if you were to look at this Australian wellness camp, put it in black and white and call it a concentration camp, and then we all watched our favorite World War II movies. And what did the Gestapo always say when they talked to someone? Papers, please.
Yep. And Well, I won't get into that part. Never mind.
Well, I mean, just think of the children, guys. I think you're all doing this wrong. You have to think of the children. If we can just save one puppy, because, oh, Jesus Christ. So, all right.
Well, you're a
Can't
doctor.
keep a straight face, can you?
No, I can't. I can't.
You're a doctor. Let's get those infants vaccinated, right?
Yeah. All right. So that's right. And in statistics, and I would argue, in debate, in forensic debate, in lieu of verifiable, repeatable, predictable fact, and remember, it's got to be verifiable, it's got to be repeatable, it's got to give us a prediction. And in lieu of those facts, what we resort to then is anecdotes. And so everybody becomes an expert if we're going to use anecdotes, because you put any two anecdotes together and we pretend that's data. Yeah. And it's not. And it's not, no matter what side of this argument you're on, by the way. If you're, COVID is the worst thing in the world, COVID doesn't exist, it was, manufactured, or, somewhere in between. And oh, by the way, so we're only talking about COVID here, right? This is what is so scary to me. I'm going back to John's earlier comments that we are giving up liberties here in America that we don't even understand, because it's not just about COVID. It's about climate change. Why climate change is real? No, climate change is not real. It's all a fiction. No, it's real and it's man-made. No, it's real, but it's dinosaur-made or made by the sun or made by, little green aliens. Doesn't matter which side you believe, because everything now is anecdote. Everybody's got their expert, and all we're getting is anecdotes. No, I'm giving you cold, hard facts. Yeah, but they're not verifiable, repeatable, measurable, and they're not offering us any predictions except the prediction that we're all going to die. And they've been offering the prediction that we're all going to die literally since the day I was born. That's a long time ago. All right, we're all going to die of killer bees and ozone layers and the ice age and heat waves that are magically going to melt all the polar caps, which, by the way, should be a good thing for us, but it's going to melt the polar caps, and then we're going to have all this flooding but no fresh water. See, fresh water is going to be rare because the whole world's going to be flooded. Well, this makes no sense, guys. And instead, whether it's an asteroid coming for Earth or, oh my gosh, maybe we're all going to get cancer, what's happened here, and you see this accelerated in the last 2 years, is that fear has become a virtue. What used to be a virtue was stoicism and optimism. And now fear and pessimism. And this is part of the critical theory, and critical race theory is a subset of that. It's part of the critical theory. I'm not even anti-critical theory, guys. If you look at it from an academic perspective, any kind of research, it's a valid lens. All it is a lens of any two phenomenon coming together. It can literally be like trees in the forest. Who's got the power? Who doesn't have the power? When the old tree falls, what happens? So you look at that. You can certainly look at human relationship through critical theory too. And it's perfectly fine to do this. It's a great analytical tool. Where critical theory falls, and you see this in critical race theory, where critical theory falls is when it starts to offer you solution sets. Because critical theory isn't based on data. It's based on anecdote. And so it's given us a solution set that says fear is a virtue. And pessimism is a virtue. And negativity, we're not optimists, we're pessimists. Look, if that's the case, then Jesus Christ, we can rationalize any liberty taken because you should be fearful. And I see this as very much George Orwellian 1984, and it's frightening.
The level of coercion is just off the chart.
Yeah, and the other thing is, too, with this COVID crisis, compared to really anything else that I can come up with, never have we had a case where the dissenting opinion was just so wrong. Now, if you disagree with the narrative, you're just the epitome of evil.
Yeah.
It's like, I have a problem with the shot. I don't think masks work. You want to kill grandma. No, I don't want to kill grandma. I'm just saying I don't really think this mask thing's doing much. I'm not sure about the shot. For the record, I did get vaccinated because I do believe in it. But I understand people having worries and concerns about it. I have friends who are looking at like, hey, my coworker went and got the shot and they were in bed for a week, and then my mother went to go get the shot and the doctor advised her not to. And they're like, I don't know if I should get it or not. I can sympathize with that level of confusion. They've got bad examples, empirical evidence in front of their eyes. You've got to respect people's fears, for lack of better terminology, on this. And it's somehow, if you're like, no, I don't want to get the shot, well, you're evil incarnate.
Yeah, Larsen, it's important to kind of point out, you talk about dissenting opinion. We're not talking about 5% of the population or 10%. We're talking about half the population. Half of the population in this country has chosen, for one reason or the other, whatever it may be, not to go that route. And it's not because of lack of availability, because you can go into any street corner and get the jab, right? It's for some other reason, whatever that reason is. And throughout history, we've kind of always respected that. We've always, my whole life, this country as a whole has always said, go to your local doctor, your trusted physician, whomever that person may be, and vet it out with them. And what they tell you to do, that's what you should do. And for the first time in my life that I can remember, that has changed. And now it's like, do not talk to your doctor. Do not go to that trusted family physician that you've had your whole life, that knows your body, that's inspected your body, that's worked on your body your whole life. Listen to this guy up in the federal government telling you what's best for you. It's just strange to me looking back on it. It's a very strange phenomenon, a strange time that we're in. I don't think I've ever experienced anything quite like this before.
Agreed.
No, so why this one? Why was there never this kind of a push for the flu? Like, lots of people died every year from the flu. Like, I know people that family that got viral pneumonia from the flu and died. The numbers every year were in the tens of thousands. Why was there never such a big push for the flu? Every year, beginning of the school year, what happened through schools across the nation? Usually within the first 4 weeks of the school year, the flu and the stomach virus ran rampant because kids pass it around. They got sick, they missed a week, they went back to school. But there was never this manic, like, driving craze of, you got to get the flu vaccine, you got to get the flu vaccine. Because I remember years past going for my annual checkup with my doctor. Hey, you want flu vaccine this year? No, I don't want it. Okay. And that was like it. That was like the entire conversation. And now all of a sudden it's 24/7 nonstop. You've got to get vaccinated. You're killing everybody if you don't. The reason we can't get back to normal is because of all you people that won't take the vaccination. You're responsible for all these deaths. Hospitals are overwhelmed and there aren't enough body bags. Really?
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like in COVID, that's really bothered me. Any dramatic claim that's been made can almost incredibly easily be refuted. Like New York is overrunning. We send a hospital ship that doesn't get used. We convert an entire stadium for trade shows to a field hospital. Doesn't get used. I mean, anything that comes up, it seems to be logically can be easily refuted. And just the mere act of that, even speaking like, hey, they didn't use the hospital ship. Oh my God, you're a heretic.
So I'll give you a good example of that, right? So I saw a post online of a lady who claimed to be a nurse working in an ER at a hospital and just talking about they had bodies stacked up everywhere. They were overwhelmed with COVID cases and most of the people weren't going to make it. And it was just horrible. They were having to turn people away, yada, yada. Well, I went to her profile page. I saw the city and state that she lived in. Coincidentally, I had a really good friend who was a police officer in that city, and it wasn't an overly large one. I messaged him, hey, do you know of this hospital? Yeah, sure do. There quite regularly. Is this the case? And he's like, no, that's absolutely 100% false. So, but you see that kind of thing just posted all over social media and people regurgitate it and repeat it. And it's like, that spreads the stuff, but then it goes to the bigger, why is somebody even posting that in the first place? What's the point of trying to sow that kind of fear and panic other than to try to coerce everybody into doing it? why are we trying to coerce everybody into doing this? What's the real goal here?
I'm going to just jump in. Can you guys hear me? No, I've been having mic issues.
Yeah, you're good, Brent.
So this isn't like I'm not a subject matter expert in any of this. I've kept pretty quiet. My big things, though, it's just like you think back to the election, right? Leading up to the election. Democrats were 100%. I'm not taking the vaccine. I don't trust it. This, that, and
It's
the other.
Trump's vaccine.
Trump's vaccine,
Right,
they're
Trump's
not gonna
vaccine.
take. It's been
The
rushed
second
too
they-
quickly.
The second they became in charge, it was flip-flop. You know?
Yeah.
So now you have everybody on the left is, non-vax, this, that, and the other. So it just, that drives me nuts. I think with the vaccine, we're at a point now, it's like, okay, you know the risks. Okay, this thing is out there. Obviously, there's some truth to it, all right? There are people that have died, okay? Get vaccinated. If you don't, and you die,
They shut you down, Brent. That you said
Okay.
too much.
We lost Brent again. But, that brings up another point. Okay, we're so concerned about the people dying here that we're taking these incredibly drastic measures. Let's talk about something that's going to kill a whole hell of a lot more people in 2021, even if you start counting from today. Smoking. Okay? Since the day I was born, they've been putting warnings out and ban advertising. Smoking is bad for you. There's nobody my age or younger that has a right to claim anything if they smoke because, well, you're doing something that we all agree is incredibly hazardous. Yet we're not banning that. We're not punishing people for smoking. Matter of fact, by law, I have to give my employees a place to go smoke.
Wait,
if they're smokers.
What kills more than smoking, Les?
Probably drunk drivers and alcoholism.
No, smoking kills more than them. Heart disease.
Heart disease.
Oh,
Heart
good
disease,
point.
number one killer.
Big
So
Mac.
why isn't everybody mandated to get off pork and put down the chocolate bar and the
Whoa,
beer?
hold it now.
And now, hey,
Whoa. Great, getting into some serious territory there, man.
no, you're going to be on my.
Bacon.
You're going to be on my insurance. You're going to be on my same insurance plan that I am, and my, deductibles are going to go up, and my premium's going to go up, and all this because you don't run 6 miles every morning. Why? I need the government out there with a bayonet poking you in the ass, and you and your whole family running you around the block. You see, you don't get a choice.
Doc, you're thinking this too far through, okay?
Yeah, I know.
You're thinking this on a detailed level. Why don't we just get the federal government to ban heart disease? That would solve everything. Then it's over, right?
I'm sorry.
Banning heart disease created a national pandemic, and life is good. No more heart disease.
You're right. That's
Hey,
it.
Doc, I was just informed by my wife. You start talking about taking chocolate away from her, you could have a serious issue, possibly worse than me if you try to take my bacon away. I'm just saying.
No, I mean, I don't want any of it. I'm one of the people who says, hey, how about we give liberty a chance? I'm just, why not try freedom, freedom of choice, deal with your own consequences. Let's try that and leave everybody alone to make up their own life. And I know that's a radical idea that probably hasn't been heard here since 1776. Oh, wait, I think it says it in our Declaration of Independence. Do you know that we have the only Declaration of Independence that says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? It's that last part. Lots of them say life. Lots of them say liberty. And we, and our Constitution has been copied a lot. But we say life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, where let's take Canada, our neighbor, and very similar in many ways. There are not so distant cousins. And they say life, liberty, and good governance. They do not say the pursuit of happiness. You have the right to good governance. But here in America, we're supposed to be able to choose our own way. We're supposed to be able to live with our own consequences and not have, the insurance companies, the hospitals, the schools, or the government come in and tell us how to do this. And so I find this whole past 2 years deeply disturbing. And oh, by the way, Bruce, I am a little tongue-in-cheek here, but I'm also, it's a little bit disturbing that if we were to ban heart disease tomorrow, heart disease cases would drop instantly, because once it's banned, why, we're not going to check for that anymore, are we? So
That's right.
it just goes away.
That's right. All we need is a legislative ban to solve everything.
That's why we need to make murder illegal.
That's a novel ideal, John.
See, progressive thinking.
Radical.
No, people have gotten so far away from that concept of you do you and I'll do me, and as long as we're not drawing blood on each other, then so be it, you know. And we're getting further away from it every day.
Let's send it back to Brent, see if his audio's back up after he got hacked by the Fauci.
CQ.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, he's still down.
So I'm going to go ahead and start the conspiracy now. I'm putting out that it's not YouTube that is cutting Brent off. It's the Marine Corps. Somebody at his unit is going, don't let him speak. Don't let him
speak. It could be. They're saving his career.
That's it. We'll save it.
Actually, no, guys, it's a more mundane excuse than that. What's really happened here is Brent's computer is actually a Prick 77 and the battery's dead.
I was going to say it's his wife unplugging his mic because she wants that retirement.
That's there you go. There you go.
Yeah, but if it's a Prick 77, it could be anything from the battery to like a wire suddenly spontaneously just decided to unhook itself. I mean,
well, that's because Brent lifted his coffee cup, the radio moved a quarter inch to the left, and now he's screwed.
There's a lot of truth to what these guys are saying for all of you that are following. I don't think you understand how cheap Brent actually is. This guy, okay, there's bullet holes in his tripods. The legs are put together. Look, that's his computer system. That's his computer system. And I guarantee you he did not pay full price for that. He got that on sale somewhere. Free shipping code.
That's right.
But you know what?
He had the choice between getting
yes,
there he is. There he is.
TA1.
Yeah, he had the choice between getting a camera or a microphone, and at least we've got the video.
I see.
What's
there he is. Call me up, Brent. Call me up.
Hello, I'm calling the Korean War.
What's sad though is I'm pretty sure all of us here outside of Bruce probably at some point in time actually trained on a Prick 77 for real.
I think.
Oh hell yeah!
I think Bruce has too. Bruce.
Yeah, I tell you that we'll transition this in. The last one, Shepherd, that I was at, they had a guy which was attached to my unit that was being trained on radio operations. And I made the mistake of popping off early on of, hey, you don't need to know any of that. Just speak plain English. Everybody will know what you're talking about. And throughout the weekend, this guy manned this radio the entire time. He was up at the middle of the night. He was keying in. He was turning dials. And I'm like, holy crap, this is far more complicated than I could have ever imagined. Listen, if you want to know how to run one of those Prick 77s and run it well, it takes a tremendous amount of training. It is not easy to do. You have to stay on top of it all the time. So my utmost respect to anybody that ever trained on those things and had to use them. That was a difficult job.
So in signal school back in the day,
come to one Shepherd.
Hey, it's
amazing.
So signal school back in the day, we actually had a rubber mallet that stayed next to one of the 77s, and there was a piece of tape on it. And when it started acting up, right where the piece of tape was at, you took the rubber mallet and whacked it really hard, and it would work until it didn't work.
Is that in one of the manuals, John?
It was an addendum.
Written in ink, handwritten.
It's called percussive maintenance.
Hey,
the TA1 field phone, that is in there. You're supposed to hit it because of the charcoal, to break up the charcoal. So that is
yeah.
that is a thing.
And there's nothing like laying out in the LPOP in the middle of the night in the dark trying to, and it ain't working. Doc, you could probably appreciate this. I had a piece of an encryption equipment. I remember this is back in like 91. So ancient analog encryption. And it was the same deal. Like if it didn't work, we had a little rubber, you whack it and it'd start working. And I remember some of the brass was coming around from a couple of different places, you know, and seeing what each person's job was and how we did it and what we did. And I was in the middle of doing something and was trying to get a message out, and so I whacked, and I had this major look at me. He's like, "Did you just take a hammer and hit a multi-$100,000 piece of encryption equipment?" Yes, sir. And he just was like, "Yes, sir, that's your answer." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's working. That's why there's a mark right here. That's where we always hit it at." What do you mean you always hit it? Well, that's where Sergeant so-and-so said to hit it at, and that's where it works. So the look on his face, though, was just like, I can't believe you just did that.
Yeah, it's, it's a military equipment. It's made for that. I mean, my personal favorite were the field phones, about that same time frame, too. And the field phones, and you just, like, see, they were so ancient then and so beat up. And, you'd see that it wouldn't, the loom wouldn't come on, the sound, the crickets didn't work. And so you'd have the guy go on, he's sitting there, he's troubleshooting it, popping off and holding he's holding the wire in his hand. And at one point, we're in the dark. At one point, he just goes, "Oh, son of a bitch." And you're like, "Oh, are they calling?" Yeah, they're trying to call us. Because that shock
I remember confirmed or denied that may or may not have been a fun trick to pull on your buddy that you were on LPOP with to unhook the wires from the field phone, and while he's sleeping, touch him to him.
Ooh.
So
done that.
Les, was it the last semester that we had that long defensive line with the interconnecting field phones? Or was that a couple semesters ago? I don't remember.
Oh, that was back at 2019 with in West Virginia the first time when we had the field phone systems going.
No, but so they kept cutting our lines and we had to go fix them?
Oh, yeah. That was last fall. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got shocked because I kept going out there like that German and enemy at the – and I'm out there fixing it. They kept cutting our wires. I had to go out there and fix the wires. And
Someone cut his wire, gentlemen. They're still cutting his wire.
Absolutely. You know what I never tried with that? I never tried, and I did go to SEER course, but we didn't have they kicked us out of helicopters, so we didn't have the field phones with us. But I always wanted to try fishing with it. Because they swore up and down you could put that into shallow water and go zig, 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 and you would get fish.
Oh.
Float to the top.
We never tried that.
I know.
Well,
I wanted
put that on our channels, and our video would be up until PETA had a fit.
Now you make me want to go try it. If I got a pond out back, I could do it.
Apparently, it doesn't actually kill the fish; it just stuns them. I don't know.
All right, sashimi.
You heard it right here, folks. Fishing tips from Doc Larsen.
Hey, field phone's a good piece of gear. I wish you used them.
Oh, absolutely. I think that is one of the most underappreciated pieces of military equipment out there.
Yeah,
100%.
Agreed.
I haven't been to an AAR in my life that didn't have our conduct or comm went down, something along those lines. I haven't attended a single one. You really don't have that problem with the field phone. Unless the enemy cuts the wire, of course.
But even then, like we found out on that patrol, Brent, every time they cut the wire, it's like, okay, we know where they're at now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
True story.
Double-edged sword. Now, I want to get some.
Sorry, go ahead, John.
No, I want to get some. That's something that's been on my list because if nothing else, we can use them up property hunting, just where we've got some of the permanent hunting stands put up to run back up to the house. That way you ain't got to rely on somebody paying attention if you need some help loading one up on the four-wheeler or something.
No, I'm telling you, and they got something like what's their distance? Like 4.2 kilometers, no batteries. That's just a TA1, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I saw today on Sportsman's Guide the German version of the TA312. You got them on sale for like $88 or something like that.
Ooh, nice.
Brent right now is Googling that. He's pulling it up with a coupon code. He's on it because he is a Sportsman's Guide whore. Let me tell you, this guy, it could be 3 a.m. He's like, dude, they got a 40-pack of gloves at Sportsman's Guide for $2. Order now. Here's the free coupon code.
And the sad thing is, Bruce isn't wrong because we'll all get the text message from him, just constant Sportsman's Guide listings.
I try to unsubscribe and I realize it's my friend. You can't unsubscribe from your friend.
I have put their kids through college, no question. All the money I spent.
Right there with you, Brent, except with me, it's Varsaleka.
You need to keep your eye out, Brent, and tell me when they get some actual TA1s in, because that's what I really, really want. That way I ain't got to worry about
I haven't seen TA1s.
I know, neither have I, anywhere.
Yeah, they come up periodically. One Shepherd, I think each of the rifle companies has something like 10 or 12, plus 312s, but the TA1s. But wow, yeah. I'll tell you what, John, if I see it, and they do periodically, they'll come up, I'll grab it, and I'll let you know, okay?
Works for me.
What do you say, Brent? We turn this into a 2-hour.
Wow. We did.
Well, we can cut it off or we can keep trucking. What do you?
Somebody got a question that they want answered? Let's go to the chat.
Yeah,
we can do that. I mean, I don't want to give away all of our pearls of wisdom in just one night. I mean, we have to stretch this out just a little bit.
This episode alone was worth the watch for your fishing tips.
Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate that. Most people don't appreciate my fishing, my angular style. I think the last catfish I caught was with a 12 gauge.
Oh, man. Well, hey, let's go around the table, starting with Brent. What's your favorite piece of field gear?
Like currently or past?
Either.
Field jacket honor.
Can't argue with that. John?
That's going to be hard to answer there. Because I'm like Brent, I'd be torn between 3 things: either the field jacket liner, poncho liner, or more currently, man, I'm just in love with this Crossfire ruck that I got after trying so many over the years.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for excuses to load that thing up and throw it on and do stuff with it.
What about you, Bruce?
Man, that's a tough one, but there's a few things that I refuse to leave the house without. And one of those is the British camo net. It's made of cotton. It's like a net. You can use it as like think of it almost like a sniper veil because you can see through it. But I use that thing. I put it over my face to keep the mosquitoes off. I keep it around my neck. It's just such a multi-use item. You can do so much with it that for the $10 that it cost, it's a must-have. Every single time I go out on the field, that's on my list. I find myself using it for one reason or another every single time I'm out in the field. So very inexpensive, but it is a must-have for me that might not be on a lot of people's list.
What about you, Doc?
Okay, so I'm going to give you my most recent, because there's so many good pieces of field gear out there. It's really, you guys are already mentioning the ones I would have just gone to, but I'll say recently, I've refallen in love with garden clippers, the little garden shears. And that was a couple of years ago. We had a Brit out there that one shepherd is like, hey, man, when you're going into all this thick, dense vegetation, there you go. That's what it is. You go into that and you're clearing out your patrol base and you're drawing your rat lines and you just cutting all the crap away from you to make little cubby holes through the thorns. Yeah, those things are indispensable. And so I will say that has been my recent godsend is those gardening shears. Definitely worth their tiny little weight and size. Put it in your rucksack. You'll never regret it. I will tell you, on the other hand, my worst case, the worst field gear ever designed, and there's a story that goes with this. We'll have to wait for next time. But it turns out that in the Pro Mask, in that NBC Pro Mask, there's a decon kit in the back. And now the green ones are real, but the blue ones we all know, well, they're practice. And that is my absolute worst set of field gear, anything. They never should have done that. It's misleading.
Okay, that's quite a story.
Yeah, I've actually got a video plan about these, and a lot of it dovetails exactly on what you're saying.
Yeah, great piece of gear.
Setting up an LPOP and you want to be nice and quiet?
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Now you guys have me thinking.
Like Doc
Well,
says,
that folding saw you took, that's pretty good to go too, though.
Yeah, that's going to be, I could put together a list of probably my top 6 or 7 and be able to justify the folding saw. Absolutely would do the same job as the shears, but maybe would be for a little bit larger type of wood, whereas the shears are smaller stuff that you can prune. It would be one of those things that maybe you would want one of each of those within the squad.
The trade-off with that's the noise and the movement.
Yeah, for sure.
You can be real slow and easy without a lot of movement with these and no noise.
Absolutely.
But the saw is going to handle bigger items. So
yeah, I agree with that.
Just depends
What
on
you got,
the
Les?
situation.
I don't think you've said anything yet.
Well, I'm going to be boring and mundane, but I'm going to go with the Leatherman tool. That's the thing I use in the field the most, hands down.
There's a reason why in my front pouch I've got a multi-tool.
Yeah. I mean, I've always taken K-bars to the field with me. You end up not really using it that much for all the space it takes up on your gear. And even after all these years, I haven't found the greatest place yet to mount my K-bar. So, but yeah, I find that the multi-tool is the one thing I use every time I go in the field, regardless, hands down.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
I don't go anywhere without mine.
Yeah, I take a bayonet or a fighting knife everywhere I go, but I don't call it a bayonet or a fighting knife. We just call it an MRE opener.
Coffee stirrer.
Coffee stirrer. That's right.
Yeah, I'll tell you that I use a small knife, whether it's on a multi-tool or I carry a little I can't think of what it's called. It'll come to me. It's a very inexpensive Nora. I think a Mora is what it's called, a small Mora knife. I use it far more than my big fighting knife. That big fighting knife is too big to do small jobs, and it's not big enough to cut anything really large. I'm sure it's great for sticking people, but let's face it, the chances of you doing that are slim, extremely slim, whereas the chances of you needing a small cutting tool, you need every single time you go out, no matter what you do. So I'm with Les. I understand that a multi-tool is probably a great piece of kit to have, or I'd say something like a small Mora knife, which costs $10-15, and you can do a whole lot with a small knife like that. It's essentially a beefed up kitchen knife.
Right. Now, somebody wrote permethrin in the comments there, and I said, "No, that's not fair. That's not a piece of gear. That's vaccination for the military." As a matter of fact, why we really don't need to be vaccinated for COVID is because we've probably all been poisoned.
Yeah. After I looked at the pamphlet on the permethrin, which I am a firm believer in since we first used it at One Shepherd, I know that if I survive wearing that for a weekend, I'm probably pretty good from anything.
I mean, how many times, you're supposed to put this stuff on and let it fully dry and all this stuff, and you see guys come to One Shepherd and they're like, just hours before the patrol, they're like, oh crap, I forgot permethrin, and they're drenching their uniform, putting it on wet, and just wearing it out there, and I'm like, oh God, we're pickled.
If you survive this, you're ready for a nuclear attack, no problem.
That's right. Someone said, hey, is that Prick 77 EMP, certified? It doesn't matter. Marines and soldiers are EMP certified. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. You open up that instructional manual and it says, warning, you're going to die.
My wife said that. She's like, why don't the mosquitoes ever bite you? And I'm like, good taste, I suppose.
It's good stuff.
So the old school bottles of bug juice, like the stuff that for fun when you were bored, you drop it on plastic and watch it turn it into a puddle of goo, and you bathed in the stuff. How much of that's been absorbed into our systems over the years? It's like, there's nothing that can live in here.
Yeah, I thought of that when we were talking about the vaccine. And if all of you are old enough to remember, man, back in the late 80s, early 90s, they were like, DEET, stay away from that. Ban it. DEET free. No DEET in any of your bug sprays. No DEET. It melts plastic. It's horrible for you. It'll kill your kids, blah, 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 blah. And now all of a sudden you've literally got, and I've seen it on TV, I've seen government commercials. I've seen local government like little banners that are like, mosquitoes are out. Make sure you're using bug spray with DEET. And it's like, and so I guess my point for this is, I did make it before, but I'll make it now, is that what's trending medically and what's bad for you today will change in a few years. So be aware of that. Us older guys know that. You younger people haven't experienced that, but it will happen. The government will tell you something is really good for you today, and 10 years from now will tell you that you should not use it. You'll die from it.
You know why, Bruce? Yeah, Bruce, it's because 1 million soldiers and Marines went through it and they were like, not any of them died. All right, never mind. DEET's good. we were the best.
2 points on that. So 2 points on that. You're exactly right, Bruce. I remember that, we can't use it. And then all of a sudden, people started dying from mosquito-borne diseases 100-fold greater than ever had medical issues from DEET. And then the pendulum swing back over. But to the point, that was settled science at one point.
That's exactly right.
Up until the point that the science changed.
That's exactly right.
Along that same lines, so people want to talk about FDA approval, this, that, and the other, right? Well, there's a whole lot of medications out there right now that at the end of the commercials, you may be entitled to compensation for this if you ever partook of this. Every single one of those was FDA approved.
That's right, and encouraged at one point.
It was settled science.
So my story is, up in the DMZ, summer of '86, and you're up there for a month at a time, and then if you're lucky, you get the draw on you. Hey, you got a 24-hour pass, go on down to Seoul and go have some fun. Well, one guy wasn't too careful, and he came back with crabs. And next thing this thing sweeps all the way through. Like, everybody's got crabs. We're like, you son of a bitch. That poor kid. He took a beating every day, but we had crabs. And so they gave us this powder. We had to burn clothes. We're out there in the DMZ burning clothes and burning underwear and all this stuff. And we're hosing down our bunks and just everything, powder. And damn, there's a monsoon going on through this whole thing. Not even a joke. So we're out there. So we're doing this. And, sure enough, the crabs are gone. But they're like, hey, you got to use it. What is it, like 21 days to make sure, like, the eggs and all this disgusting stuff. Oh, yeah, it gets rid of it. Like, all right. So we're at like 14 days, and all the medics come back and they're like, hey, they got this new cream. It's supposed to be like, twice as powerful. Hey, give us the powder and we'll give you the cream. And I'm like, no, hell no. We're all like, we're not dumb. Give us the cream. It's twice as possible. And we'll just use the powder in our fart sacks and everything. We were just like, it was like a powder party. We're all like, God damn it. And nothing more disgusting than having little creatures crawl on your balls. And so we're just like powdering everything. And And finally, the medics are getting furious because we're not giving it back. I mean, the tents are nothing but just, it looks like someone's smoking in there because there's so much powder. And they're like, stop it, damn it, stop it, give it back. We're like, why? And they said, because it causes testicle cancer. I mean, people are like throwing like the powder, but God, take this. What the hell, man?
Settled science, Doc. Settled science.
So yeah, I get it. That FDA didn't count for us. Yeah, no, they just gave us whatever worked, and if it didn't, plus.
Like I said, the old school bug juice. I don't know what all was in that stuff, but the bugs sure didn't like it, and neither did plastic or polyester or nylon or anything else.
That's right. That's right.
So I avoided getting the COVID vaccine because I'd already had COVID and I had antibodies and everything. I was like, I'm just going to wait till this thing gets, certified before there's no rush. But then I actually transferred it, and I got a hold of my medical record, which looks like a telephone book, by the way. And I looked in there, and I saw that I had six anthrax among 100 other things that I've never even heard of. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I don't care.
Yeah, you can do lines of anthrax off the back of a toilet now, Brent. You're set.
Brent will be the one walking over. Hey, y'all want to see something funny? Watch this.
Well, EAS stands for Experimental American Soldier.
No, Brent.
I always love that Desert Storm to get the protection against nerve gas. They gave us shot 1 and shot 2. No explanation of what they are. Just shot 1, shot 2 with the word classified next to them.
Yeah.
Brent's gonna be the one going, Hunter Biden, who? Never heard of him.
I remember I had to get the smallpox on ship. I mean, talk about the most uncleanliness, situation ever. We had to walk around with, Reynolds wrap, or not Reynolds wrap, but that clear stuff over our.
Oh yes, Saran
wrap
over our shot site. So, but anyways, guys, I think it's a good stopping point. We almost made it to 2 hours here, so I know we're dropping off on viewers too. So.
They've had it
good for me. When I'm admitting to the world that I had crabs, is probably better.
Yeah, when you started talking about your scrotum,
I think that we found the low point there, Doc.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Anybody have any parting shots?
I'm good, man.
We've covered it.
Yeah. All right, fellas. Well, I appreciate you guys tuning in, and thanks for watching. Don't forget, everybody inside here has a respective YouTube channel. Be sure to check them. Thanks for watching, guys, and don't forget to leave a comment.